views expressed in this program do not reflect the views of the staff, management, or licensee of this station. This is 91.7 FM, WHUS Stores. I am Peddlin' Ron, and you are listening to Bicycle Talk. This is episode 386 to be broadcast March 13th, 2024 on WHUS 91.7 FM and WHUS.org. Welcome to Bicycle Talk with my friendly co-host, the lovely Dr. Fran Storch. If you're watching on Facebook Live, please feel free to comment right down here below. We should be able to respond. Bicycle Talk is a show where we talk about bicycle culture, bicycle advocacy, upcoming news in cycling, the bicycle business, and the bicycle calendar. If you have a comment or you'd like to contribute information to the show and you're listening on Facebook Live, you can comment on the Bicycle Talk Facebook page, or you can email me at bicycletalk1@gmail.com. You can also listen to past episodes of Bicycle Talk on WHUS.org, iTunes, Spotify, and now on my Bicycle Talk YouTube channel. Ron's rant of the week: distracted driving. Distracted driving. Why do I have to keep talking about this? This is just a silly, bad habit. And unfortunately, guess what? It's getting worse, of course. So I have here on my notes, in shouting letters, that's when you put everything all cap, turn off the cell phone, please, right? Please turn off the cell phone. Either that or hire a driver and surf all you want. There you go. If you're going to be reading the newspaper while you're driving your car down the road, maybe you should have someone driving you down the road. How about that as an idea? Because what's the difference between you reading that newspaper? People used to read these things. They were made out of a big sheet of paper. They were called newspapers for all you youngsters out there. The way you read your newspaper when you were commuting into New York City on the train is you were commuting to New York City on the train. You're sitting in a place where you didn't have to do the driving, or you were on a bus or whatever you were doing, but you didn't drive your car reading a newspaper. You just didn't do that. You couldn't see where you were going. So instead of having this gigantic piece of paper where you could see the print, now we have this little tiny screen. And we have this little tiny screen, and we're, looking at it really, really closely, and we're not paying any attention whatsoever to what's going on in front of us. Turn off the cell phone, please. It just drives me nuts. Okay, and so I'm going to go on to this, and we will talk a little bit more about this in the show, I'm sure, because the inconvenient truth behind the pandemic rise and in distracted driving. Yes, the pandemic rise in distracted driving. New data is showing that we're struggling to curb distraction while driving. Is it time to talk about curbing driving instead? According to the new report, distracted driving events, or more specifically, a motorist picking up a handheld phone and manipulating the screen while the vehicle is moving 10 miles per hour or more, increased around 20% between the early days of 2020 and 2022. But of course, this and more in this show. And of course, you know why I talk about this, because I ride a bicycle and I just don't want you to distract yourself into the back end of my bike, please. Thank you. Very, very simple. Anyway, on a positive side, okay, hey, we got some positive stuff here. Got a couple of things I want to point out. First of all, American cyclists are making the news in European bicycle racing. We are going to talk about this later on in the show. Hello, Perry Nice. If anybody is watching any bike racing this weekend or over the past week, you know what I'm talking about. But you know what? I'm going to hold on to that thought until we get into the show. Second on my list of things that popped up on my feed, the town of Canton, Connecticut. At Canton, Connecticut, it's a little, I guess you would call that a suburb of Hartford, sort of to the west of Hartford, near Farmington and Simsbury and all those areas out there. The town of Canton Police Department has just released a speed limit change alert. Ready? You ready? Alert, speed limit change. After an extensive traffic study conducted by the town of Canton and the CTDOT, that's the Department of Transportation. Now, I'm going to give these guys a big shout out right now because I'm usually very critical of the Department of Transportation, and I prefer to call the Department of Cars and Trucks, but they're going to get their official statement today because the following speed limit changes have been made to Route 565, otherwise known as Dowd Ave Maple Avenue. The speed limit has been reduced from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles per hour in both directions of travel on Route 565 Maple Avenue from Route 179 River Road to Mills Lane Atwater Road. The speed limit has been reduced, again, from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour in both directions of travel between Maple Avenue, Dowd Avenue, from Mills Atwater Road to a point approximately a quarter mile east of East Hill Road. All right, as many of you have already noticed, new signs have been installed. Please reduce your speed and adhere to the new speed limit. Well, we're dropping speed limits. Yay, about time. Boy, this so I'm going to give Canton a big shout out. I don't know how much road surface I'm talking about here. I don't know if this is, a half a mile or if it's 3 miles or whatever it is, but it's a step in the right direction. So anyway, I had to put it on the positive side because it's positive. Slow down, especially if you're going to be driving with your cell phone, which you should put the darn cell phone down. Don't look at your cell phone while you're driving. But people do anyway. If there were only some way of controlling that, and I just don't know what the answer is. When cigarette smoking was killing people, we told them they would die, and that seemed to be fairly effective. When people start dying inside their automobiles instead of outside their automobiles, will that make a difference? I'm not sure. Because inside the automobile, they are completely protected. Outside the automobile, we are vulnerable users, and it's not good at all. So until people start, losing their lives inside their vehicles because of their distracted driving, I'm afraid that we're kind of stuck here for a while because there's no real way to control it at this time that we are practicing. I'm going to leave that wide open because I'm sure there's some techno geeks out there that listen to my show because I'm a techno geek. And I'm sure they're out there and they know a way of making this a possibility. But, what if your cell phone, the minute you got into a car, would only go over to SOS mode? So the only time you could really use it is if you were in an emergency. There's an idea. Then you wouldn't be so inclined to look at it, would you? Anyway. Well, we move on. A mechanical minute and cycling tips. Back to that tire width discussion. Yeah, I'm back there. The reason I'm back there is because I found a really cool site, and I have shared it on the Facebook page. See, I just widen my screen here a little bit so we can take a look at it. Everybody's talking about tire width these days. I saw the guys at the Global Cycling Network. They put out a great little video, and they were actually time trialing, testing power outputs of riders while they were riding on the wider tires versus the narrow tires. And they broke it down in all different, anywhere from 25C tires to 28C tires to 30C tires, 32C tires, and then beyond that up to like a 34C tire. And the magic number, which seems to be popping up now these days, is 32C. Now, I've been riding on 28s if I'm riding clinchers. I say that if, because I do still ride tubulars occasionally. I've been riding on 28s for a while now, both Fran and I have, and it made a pretty big difference. Comfort level was really, really good, and you drop the tire pressure down a little bit. It doesn't really feel a whole lot different except for the fact that it's a lot more comfortable. So now I'm exploring the idea of maybe even going as big as a 32C tire, which is something I would use on my cyclocross bike. And so I already know what that's like, and it is a lot more comfortable. But let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this, because we have to talk about what a number of things. And first off, number one, and first and foremost, what will your frame allow? And that's an important question, because if you're riding on an older bicycle, if you're riding on a little bit older bicycle, that frame isn't going to allow much wider than a 25C tire, and that could be even a squeeze. If you're riding an older bicycle, let's go back a few years, and that's a big question. I just picked up an old Marinoni bike, which is it was a hand-built frame. I used to sell Marinonis in my store many years ago, and that was back in the 80s. So this one appears to be probably more like a late 90s Marinoni, but they're hand-built Italian frames made in Canada by a guy by the name of Giuseppe Marinoni, who was a professional bicycle racer at one time. And he moved to Canada and built bike frames. That's what he did. Nice riding bike. With my very first race bike was Marinoni. It was one of my favorites. And of course, as I do, I foolishly sell things and move on to the next and the latest and the greatest, because I was in the bike industry and that's what I did. But anyway, I just stumbled across one, or shout out to Gary at Pedal Power in Middletown for finding this and immediately thinking of me when he saw it, because it appeared to be in my size, and he wasn't wrong. So it's sitting downstairs, and it's going to get some new life put into it, a few changes here and there. First thing is going to be the saddle, of course, and then, you know, I'll throw some nice pedals on it and take it from there. But I do have to do the tires right away, because the tires are, they're a little old, so they're getting cracked and all, but also, as I started measuring things the other day, I can certainly easily put 28s on, but I might be able to put 30 or 32C tires on the bike. Here's where you run into the problem. Not only do you run into a width problem when you go to a wider tire, but you also run into a height problem. So you may be able to squeeze it between the chain stays and the seat stays on the bike, but you might not be able to clear the top end there. So it might hit against the brake bridge, or it might hit up against your fork crown. So you got to figure all that out before you go out for your first ride, because if it hits your fork crown, if the tire hits your fork crown, you hit you're going to go over the handlebars. That's just not acceptable. Fortunately, you would have at least spun your wheel first before trying that. But anyway, so what will your frame allow? That's the number one thing. Number two, big one here. What is the road condition? Okay, road condition makes a big difference here, because road condition is one of the reasons why you might want to go to a wider and or narrower tire. If you've got pristine, beautiful, just been paved, or this road has been around for 15 years but still looks like it's just been paved type roads, well, congratulations, you live somewhere in California. It doesn't happen here. I shout out California on this, because a lot of parts of California, and even the Southwest, they don't have the weather we have, so therefore they don't have the interruption of the road services from the frost heaves and the other nasty things that break our roads up, including excessive amounts of moisture, in which case this year we are on a record-breaking pace for excessive moisture once again, just as last year. Lots of rain is not necessarily good for road surfaces. So what is the road condition? You have perfectly beautiful, pristine roads to ride on, no bumps, no chip seal, no gravel, none of that. then you can go with a little narrower tire if you do that, because it doesn't matter as much. But if you have what we have out here, which is unbelievably gorgeous roads in northeastern Connecticut. First of all, we have just a great place to ride your bike. It doesn't compare to a lot other than places in Massachusetts and Western Mass, Central Western Mass has some great roads too, except their roads are a little more beat up than our roads are. I'm not quite sure why. There are some places, Rhode Island also, this is all kind of that southern New England thing. And upstate New York, same thing. There's some great places to ride because it's just super, super rural and nice, and roads with names, not numbers, good roads to ride on, great roads to ride on. So anyway, but when you go to that road condition, you're also going to, if you're going to a more rural area, less density of population, less people who demand to have smooth roads because, they're in suburbia and they want the smoothest, best roads that they can get their hands on for driving their, behemoths down the road. So, our road conditions tend to be neglected sometimes. That's a good word. Neglected is a great word. If it's not in the budget this year to fix Bassett's Bridge Road, then, we're going to put the money and we're going to fix Mulberry Road or whatever, which is what happened last year, by the way. And Bassett's Bridge Road, which is the road that Fran and I live on, is a little rough and tumble in places. There's potholes, there's interesting things going on. Even our state roads have a lot of pothole damage right now because of winter. The cold, the freezing, the frost heaves, the pavement cracks, water gets into it. Before you know it, a big truck goes over that place a few times, breaks the pavement loose, and now you have a pothole. This is the kind of stuff we deal with out here. So I'm going to say my road conditions are rougher than most road conditions that are out there. And so what I want to do is I want to get the most comfortable ride I can for that. So the other thing that we do here in the summertime is often we do this thing called chip sealing. And if you're not from this part of the country, or maybe you are from other parts of the country where they do this, it is it's a kind of an oily thing they put down, and then they spread a very, very textured, gravelly product over the top of that, and then it gets pressed into the road as the cars drive over it. It's called chip seal, and it's rough. It's not very, very smooth. So why did they chip seal? Because chip seal is cheap. It's cheaper to do. It's more economical, I will say. And so anyway, a lot of our road surfaces are treated that way, and until the roads get used a lot, it doesn't really smooth out. So it's a little rumbly when you're riding your bike down it. It's fine. It's not gravel, but it has kind of a gravelly kind of aspect to it as far as the bumpy character of the road. So what's your road condition? Okay, and number 3 on my list, am I fast or do I care to be fast? Well, there's a gray area here, okay? If you're the type of rider that likes to ride really fast and you're really interested in getting the best average speed out of your ride, there tends to be, this is a tendency, you tend to look for the smoothest roads you can find because, you want to go fast. Unfortunately, many of those roads have numbers on them, which Ron does not like, so I tend to not ride on them. And do I care how fast I am? Not anymore. I did years ago. I was really into it. I raced my bike. I did time trials. I wanted to, see how fast I could move my bike. That was my big goal. But I don't care anymore. I don't care what my Strava segment says. I don't care about speed. I care more about going out and riding my bike, having a good time, seeing some great roads, maybe stopping and seeing some really cool animals at a farm when I'm going by, whatever, or just stopping because it's a beautiful view, whatever it is. We have lots of that out here, and so it's a lot easier to do that here than it is in other places, because you're not watching out for cars and trucks as much. You're watching for beautiful scenery, which is kind of nice. So speed is definitely an issue. The narrower tires with a little bit higher pressure in them are going to give you more speed, so they say. Now that once again, I said this is a gray area. And the reason I'm saying it's gray area is because now that all these new studies are coming out, they're finding out that there's actually as much speed out of a wider tire, or maybe even a little bit more, than there was with the narrow tires, for two reasons. One of those reasons being the aerodynamics of the way the tire's cutting through the wind, especially on the front wheel, and then the other being the fact that you're not bouncing on the surface as much, and therefore you have better ground contact, therefore making your bike faster. Again, it's a discussion point. It's a good thing to share a pint of beer over, or whatever you want to do, whatever works. So, and then number 4 on my list here is, what size will my rim accept? Yeah, that's a biggie, because if you've got a really, really old bike, it might have really narrow rims, and the wider tire may not work as well as it would if it were on something a little bit wider. The acceptable new width is 23 or 24C to handle the wider tires, and the tire just sits on it a little bit better. And so there's that. Okay, and why do I care? This is my favorite part of this. This is number 5. Why do I care? Comfort? That's the thing to care about. Durability? That's another thing to care about. Weight weenie? I've given up on you guys. Sorry. It's not about the weight of your bike, really. It isn't. I know it's really nice to be able to pick up a 17-pound bicycle and say, my bike only weighs 17 pounds. Some people even pick up 15-pound bicycles. That's all great. It's all wonderful. How much do you weigh? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get personal. Anyway, there are limits to the weight weenies, and those limits can be durability, and that's going back to my second comment on number 5 here, or third comment on number 5. So if you read on the Specialized site, Specialized Bicycles, they say this: generally speaking, quote unquote, lower tire pressures provide better control on wet or loose terrain, as well as a smoother ride. Higher tire pressures provide better puncture protection. Okay, that's debatable, but yeah, okay, I'll go there. Yeah, what the higher pressure tires provide is they provide a lesser pinch problem on the tire. So I would say that they not necessarily are going to be better as far as punctures go, but because I think the higher pressure tires also pick things up a little bit, but well, we won't get into it. It's a long discussion, and I don't have any real information behind me other than theory, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So anyway, there are lots of different tires out there now, and a lot more of them are coming in the wider sizes. So that's great. The big brand companies like Vittoria and Continental and all that, they're all making bikes, tires that are of a wider influence. Good thing, because back when I had my store and everyone was like raving about Continental when they first came out, we turned back like 50% of them. We gave back to the place we were buying them from, because they just could not withstand the roads of northeastern Connecticut. But that was back when tires were really narrow. We were riding on 20C tires, 19C tires, just crazy stupid things. Bone shaking tires, basically. And you had to ride them super, super high pressure to be able to keep them from being vulnerable in any way. So, the times were different. And, you know, I was looking more for something with a little bit more of a tougher casing than what they were offering at that time. I know people that swear by those tires now and love them and ride them all the time. I know my friend Too Tall Billy is a big Continental guy. He's a big gator skin guy. So, you know, everybody's got their thing and what works for them. And that's the key point, what works for you. So you have to look at all these things. You also have to look at your own personal body weight, and you have to look at your riding style, where you like to go. I'm the kind of guy that if I'm riding down a road and I look off to the left and I see a dirt road and it looks interesting, I'm going to go find out why it looks interesting. And it may be my last time on that road, and it may be the first time of many on that road, because it could be like a really cool road that goes to a really cool place and was well worth the slowing down a little bit and riding on the dirt road. So I'm kind of a fan of dirt roads as far as that goes, because it brings you to places that you haven't been before, and it's kind of cool. So anyway, as I'm stumbling along and preparing for the show this morning, I find this thing called a pressure calculator, tire pressure calculator. And that thing is now listed on my site. You'll find it on the Bicycle Talk site, and you can click on it and check it out. It's put out by Silca, which made, for many, many years, one of the finest floor pumps of all the floor pumps out there. They still make them. They still cost a lot more money than a normal floor pump does. And they still work really, really good, because I have one from back in the 80s, and I've rebuilt it a couple of times, and it still works great. And I did have to replace the pressure gauge on it. I don't know that I ever even replaced the leather gasket in the inside, because if you just keep the leather gasket moist and you use something really nice, like a Campagnola grease is what we used to use back in the day, but a good white lithium grease that you can just really massage into the leather, and because the gasket is made out of, yes, real leather, and they last for a long time. They last forever. So that's my particular pump of choice. There are some newer pumps out there that are very, very nice also, and you know, you get what you pay for, basically. So it is not it's not a bad idea to invest in a good floor pump, because that makes a difference. So let's go back to this. So I threw some numbers into this. What you have here when you go to this guide is you enter your the total system weight, your rider plus your bike plus your gear. So that becomes interesting, because then you kind of have to know, you know, what your bike weighs, when it's like fully loaded, or, you know, it has a seat bag on it. So let's say it has, your bike ends up being a pretty lightweight bike, a nice light road bike, and maybe it weighs like 20 pounds or so, maybe 20, 21 pounds. So you take that and you put your body weight on top of that. And so I'm going to take my body weight, which is very low right now, just a little skinny guy, and I'm going to add 20 pounds onto my weight of 130 pounds, and I have 150 pounds. All right, and then the next category that you go to is you go to surface condition, and there's a whole drop-down network here, right here. It starts anywhere from indoor wooden track to outdoor concrete track, to new pavement, which we don't see a lot of around here, worn pavement with some cracks, a category 1 gravel, a poor pavement or / chip seal surface, which is generally what we have around here, a category 2 gravel, a cobblestone, a category 3 gravel, and a category 4 gravel. What category 1, 2, 3, and 4 are in gravel, I'm not real sure, but I'm kind of guessing that, you know, a category 1 gravel is probably a nicely surfaced gravel road that you can really scoot along on, almost as good as you would on a paved road. Category 2, I would say, has probably got, it's probably got an occasional pothole here and there. Whatever, a few little washouts there, here and there, that sort of thing. Category 3, probably a lot more severe. Category 4, I'm going to say that the 3s and 4s are probably a lot to do with what we're going to be dealing with when we are riding on the Natchaug Epic ride in a couple of weeks. Because I was on a couple of them last year, which certainly were Category 4. They were definitely lots of washout. I wouldn't even really phrase them as a true road. I'd call them more of a woods trail, that sort of thing. So, depends on what you're looking for. So I just clicked on this and I put in poor pavement chip seal, because that's kind of what we have here. And not always. Sometimes we have like a worn pavement with some cracks. There's that option too. And then the next box that you have to check off, of course, is your wheel diameter. So 700C or 29 inch, as they say in some areas. But you also have the option of 650C, 650B, that's a 27.5 or a 26 inch tire. Those are the wheel diameters they give you. That's all they give you. That's your selection. And then you look across here and it will say measure tire width. And that's where they give you so many different measurements, anywhere from 20 millimeter on up to 65 millimeter. I don't know what that is. That's got to be a fat bike or something. That's a big tire. Anyway, they give you that, and you get to, so you click into that category, and then the next thing they do is they give you selections of tire types. And tire types would be high performance tires, tubeless or latex tube tire, a mid-range casing tire with a latex tube, a mid-range casing with a butyl tube, and a puncture-resistant tire with a tubeless latex tube. So depending on what you're doing. So let's pull on this one. I'm going to go... I like riding high-performance tires. I really like them a lot. They definitely feel a little nicer. They have more threads per inch, which give you a little more supple behavior on the tire. So I'm going to leave that right there. And then you go over to the infamous, hate this, average speed. Are you a recreational rider? Are you a fast single track rider for the mountain folks out there or the gravel riders out there? Are you a moderate road group ride rider? Are you a fast group ride rider? I'll let you be the judge of what category you fall into. I know people tend to overestimate what they really are, but that's okay. Or are you a Cat 1, Cat 2, or Cat 3 racer? Or are you on the Pro Tour? Now, if you're on the Pro Tour, I'm finding it very, very interesting that you're listening to Bicycle Talk right now. But that's okay. If it entertains you, that's fine. That's fine. And welcome to the show. Anyway, so I kind of put moderate group ride on here because I thought that kind of falls into a lot of the rides that I lead out here with our local group, the Thread City Cyclers. And so I just thought that would be a good thing to throw out there. So I did. And then it says weight distribution. And this one was a little vague to me, but they, just to break it down so you understand, triathlon time trial track bike 50-50, which means that you're probably down in a real deep aero position all the time, and you're distributing weight out to your handlebars a little bit more, because you might have aero bars or something like that. So that's the 50-50. The 48-52 is road bike, which means that, you're in kind of a semi-drop position, but 52% of your weight is going to be on the back and 48% of your weight is going to be on the front, roughly. And gravel bike is listed as 47-53, and mountain bikes are listed as 46.5 through to 53.5. I have no idea where they get these numbers from, but this is Silka and this is what it is. So then you put all these numbers in, and I put in 32 millimeter because I was interested in that. And then you hit the calculate button, And when you hit the calculate button, it tells you what your rear tire PSI should be, or bar if you're doing the European method, and what your front tire pressure should be. And you're gonna be real surprised when you put those numbers in, because I put in those numbers for your 32C for something that I would be riding on. And I can give you the change between a 28 and a 32 very quickly here, and I will review that with you on the rest of this discussion. And then I'm going to move on to the more in the show. But to give you an idea, 56.5 pounds on a rear tire, on a 32C tire. Does that sound low to you? Sounds low to me. It's lower than I am right now, and so it certainly is something I want to check out. And this is to give you the most efficient pedaling pressure that you can get on your bike. So performance-wise, etc. I will change a couple of numbers around here to give you a rough idea about how this does change. The front tire, 55 PSI. I am currently running about 70 pounds in my front tire and 75 to 80 in my rear tire on a 28C tire. So I'm going to go back up here to the same, all the other parameters are going to stay the same. I'm going to put it on a 28C tire, and then I'm going to hit the button, and let's see what happens. And it goes to 69.5 on the rear and 68 on the front. So I'm pretty close. Not bad. Right around there, 70 pounds roughly. So what happens when you increase, let's say, that 150, which is the rider plus the bike? Let's say it goes up to 200. And we'll just take a quick breeze down here. We hit that button. This is also on a 28C tire. It's still 73 in the rear and 71 in the front. Look, I could play with this all day long on the show, but I'm not going to do that. I am going to encourage you to go to the Facebook page, to the Bicycle Talk Facebook page, and find it. Or if you would like, you can go to Silca, silca.cc/pages/pro-tire-pressure-calculator. So, or just Google up Silca tire pressure calculator, and this thing will come up, and it's fascinating. I was playing with it way too long this morning because there's all sorts of interesting combinations that you can do. But the bottom line is, the wider that tire gets, the less pressure you need in that tire, and depending on what you're looking for. And if you do have the luxury of having new pavement, that number changes once again, and it will go up at least 10 pounds. So in pressure. So, but we're talking new pavement, same other calculations, 28C tire, high performance, tubular, tubeless tire, that sort of thing. You're looking at 81 pounds and 83 pounds. 83 on the rear, 81 on the front. We're still way lower than what we used to ride on years and years ago. You change that tire width, once again, smooth roads, perfect roads, to a 32 millimeter tire, and hit the calculate button. It drops all the way down to 67.5 on the rear and 66 on the front. It's intriguing. Play with it. You'll spend an hour on it at least, just fiddling around, figuring out what the heck is what am I riding on right now? This is crazy. I just bought these brand new tires. They're big, fat, wide tires and really gushy, and I'm running them at 110 pounds just like I used to. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's insane. You don't need to do that. Even if you're racing your bike, you don't need to do that. Let me see. Oh, let's throw that in there. Cat 1. Let's go for Cat 1, 2, 3 racing, and we're at that same thing, and 68.5, 66.5. You don't need high pressure in those tires. You just don't need it. It's not necessary. You're going to be as efficient. You're going to be aerodynamically more efficient, as all the tests are starting to show, because of the way that the tire disperses the air pressure around. I've spent enough time talking about tires and air pressure today. I could go on forever on this. I'm fascinated by it. And also, I've been so wrong for so long. It's just, this is a good thing. You learn. It always surprises me as I get older. I actually continue to learn things. I thought, once you get set in your ways, that's it, you're there. No, open up, be receptive to change. It's a good thing. Anyway, I still will be a very, very strong proponent of good old steel bike, though. Sorry, guys. That's just the way it is. So let's see. What else do I have here to talk about? Oh, that distracted driving thing. Yeah. This is all fun. Okay. The inconvenient proof. This is from Streets Blog, and Streets Blog always has wonderful stuff about advocacy and other things that are very interesting. And there's a lovely picture of this person sitting behind the wheel of a Jeep. It says Jeep on the steering wheel. And she is looking down at her cell phone. And she's looking at her Spotify to see what song she's going to play next. Possibly while driving the car? Hope not. So this is by someone by the name of Kia Wilson. And this is an article that says it's because the cell phone use has been behind the wheel is skyrocketing during the pandemic, even among drivers whose insurance companies rewarded them for keeping their phones stashed, raising trouble questions about how much more distracted driving will occur if America doesn't take steps to reduce driving itself. And this is an interesting concept, because the angle on this article is gearing towards the only way we're going to curb distracted driving is to stop driving. Interesting, huh? According to a new report, distracted driving events, quote unquote, or more specifically, a motorist picking up a handheld phone and manipulating the screen while the vehicle is moving 10 miles per hour or more, increased 20% during the days between 2020 and 2022. I'd stated that earlier in the show. And it doesn't even include harder to track but still dangerous distraction events like flicking through the infotainment screen on your dashboard or using phones hand-free, which studies show is deadly too. Really. So that's according to the Cambridge Mobile Telematics, a technology company that monitors the behavior of drivers who opt into programs that give them insurance discounts in exchange for safe behavior. You know, all those ads you see on TV or hear on the radio that say, hey, if you do this and sign up for the safe driver, blah, 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 and we're going to track you. And they can track you by either your cell phone or they can actually put a GPS device in your car. Is Big Brother watching? Get a little creepy feeling when I hear that. But anyway, this is what insurance companies are doing these days to try to get people to basically drive better. So they're giving you a discount on your insurance if they can track and monitor every move you make. Does that sound a little off? Well, anyway, if you ride your bike, they don't track you there. They might on your cell phone, but that's another story. The most horrific finding, roughly 34% of crashes recorded among the company's customers involved a driver who had been using a cell phone either at the time of the impact or at some point in the 60 seconds immediately before the crash. When studies show motorists are still shaking off a distraction hangover that slows their response times even after the phone has left their hands. Interesting, huh? So you put your phone down and you're driving down the road and something's still going on inside your brain that is still leaving you somewhat distracted. Distraction hangover. I like that part. That was one of my favorite parts of this article because that's a little scary. So you use your cell phone, you put it down, and you still got something going on inside your brain, which is still making you feel distracted from what you're supposed to be doing, which is driving your car. Anyway, as researchers suspect the reason behind the increase is less about COVID than our increasing reliance on smartphones themselves, a phenomenon which the isolation of the pandemic helped increase, but probably won't slow down as case counts wane. As individuals, we have begun using smartphones for more parts of our lives, They've continued to do that behind the wheel. That's the senior vice president of Cambridge Mobile Telematics talking. The problem got significantly worse in March of 2020, and then it started to accelerate very quickly. So, and of course, smartphone ownership and pedestrian and cyclist deaths are increasing. That was from the National Traffic Safety Administration. I've talked about this on the show a lot. This is a chronic problem as I see it. So, this person from this company, Ms. McMahon, said that the very boundary between the core functions of a car and cell phone has become increasingly porous, with navigation, entertainment, emergency services, features migrating from tactical dashboard buttons to the phone screen itself. And thanks to America's unique culture of overwork, some pundits argued that the boundaries between the daily commute and the rest of our life have eroded too, as Zoom meetings bleed over from the office to the drive home, and caretakers text to check on relatives as they zip from daycare drop off to the grocery store, even if they know they should pull over first, right? So here it is. We're rushing all the time to get somewhere. Always late, always dealing with that person that's sitting behind us when we're riding our bicycle down the road, and can't you just wait 10 seconds until it's safe to pass me? Seems fairly simple, but no, everybody's got to get there yesterday. And if you wanted to get there yesterday, you should have started out the day before. That's my explanation. So short of requiring U.S. residents to transition back to the kind of manual transmission cars that require two hands to operate, that still doesn't work. I drove a manual transmission for years, and I was on my cell phone, I'll admit it. The predominance of which may help explain why Cambridge customers in the UK recorded about 1/3 of the distraction events as their US counterparts. That's interesting. So standard transmission cars make a difference. They'll make you safer when you drive down the road. Interesting. And try to buy a standard transmission car these days. They're not too popular here in the US. We don't see a whole lot of them out there. I used to love my standard transmission cars. I would still have one if I could find one, but in the type of vehicle that I drive, they're just not available. Even I was driving Volkswagens for years. Even VW has pretty much phased them out of the U.S. market. I don't know if there's anything even out there that's left. Maybe in one of their sportier models or something. But yeah, standards are kind of done. So that is very interesting. So if you take a look at all these stats, it's really, really scary, because there are also, just so you know, there are bans on phones that are in certain states, and it depends on what state you're in as far as that goes. But just to give you an idea of how this works, phone motion time per state. This is back in June of 2018. Rhode Island, 1 month before the law of you can't hold onto your phone and talk on the phone anymore because it's a crime, so to speak. It's illegal. The 1 month before, the average phone call was 2 minutes and 25 seconds. 3 months after the law, 2 minutes and 25 seconds. No change. Didn't make a difference. Okay, in Georgia, 1 minute and 34 seconds down to 1:18, so it dropped a little bit. The biggest drop was Minnesota, which went from a minute on the phone to 44 seconds on the phone. It's just... And Massachusetts, this is a good one, was a minute and 21 seconds, and it went up to a minute and 24 seconds. So, yeah, that's not really good. So let's go to handheld bans and phone motion. Basically, people are still staying on the phone just as long as they were before. That was what that was representing. And this one was handheld bans and phone motion. Rhode Island, 1 month before the law, was still way high. The only state that really made the decrease, that really gets a big shout out, is Minnesota. Good for you guys. Great. But, you know, it's the comparison chart is scary. It's on Street's blog if you want to check it out yourself. You certainly can do that, and you can see what this is all about. I got to move on because we are going to miss out on one of the more exciting parts of the show here today, and I won't even get into the traffic engineering in the U.S., and that there's another subject which I'll save for next week. Going forward, last weekend, 8-day Paris-Nice race, American shine. American cyclist Natchaug Jorgensen wins the Paris-Nice race. That is a big deal. That is a very big deal. And guess which team he's on? Visma Leasebike. Yeah, they won another one. They're just cranking through all the victories right and left. And that makes him the third American to win the 8-stage race. Now, of course, I didn't dig deep enough to figure out who the other two riders were, but kind of guessing maybe Le Mans might have been in there, but I'm not sure. But I didn't spend enough time researching to find out what was going on there. The interesting thing about it is, and it's just all good stuff, great stuff. Where was the one piece I wanted here? Here it is. This is from Global Cycling Network. So Remco Evenepoel was also in this group, and he didn't get first, second, or third. He did win the final stage, which is great, but the Natchaug Jorgensen sealed the overall victory in Paris-Nice, finishing the stage in second on that stage, and they basically ended up powering away from Brandon McNulty, other U.S. rider riding for UAE Team Emirates, who had the yellow jersey at that point. He was the leader, and they unfortunately left him behind because he just couldn't hang on. It was a great stage to watch. It was really a lot of fun. So the decisive action kicked off on the fourth climb of the day as Evenepoel attacked on the Col de Pelle, and over 40 kilometers from the finish, with Jorgensen and Vlasov, who also finished in the top 5, quickly following, putting McNulty in trouble. With no allies in the chase behind, McNulty struggled to chase, but the leaders soon built up more than a minute's lead over the yellow jersey, leaving riding Jorgensen to the final lead, which became official on the finish line. He says, "To be honest," a near speechless Jorgensen said when he asked if he could win the Paris-Nice before the race. He said, "No." Honestly, never. Until this year, I would never have believed that this was possible, but here we are. I couldn't have gone any better today, and the whole week hasn't really sunk in yet, to be honest. I could barely sleep last night. I was so nervous and felt for the first time in my life pressure. To have it come together like that, to ride with such a champion as Remco, it was just really a special moment. And, you know, it was just a great race to watch. If you saw it, good for you. If you didn't see it, go to YouTube. You'll find it. It's in there, and you'll be able to see at least clips from it. So it's really, really cool. I was able to watch it yesterday, and it was awesome. It was just an awesome thing. So we have in the final on this race, I think I put that in here. Let me make sure. Yeah, so Natchaug Jorgensen from Team Visma Leasebike, 27 hours, 50 minutes, and 23 seconds. Remco Evenepoel from Soudal Quickstep was 30 seconds behind him, and this is an overall standings. And in overall standings, Brandon McNulty from the UAE Team Emirates was 1 minute and 47 seconds behind. Matthias, I could never pronounce that last name, Skymus from Little Trek was 2:22, and Alexandra Vlasov was 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Those were the top 5. Great race. good early season stuff. There's all sorts of early season stuff going on right now, including let's see, what was it here that Jonas Vingegaard was in the Torino Adriatico, and he has also won he won that race, and that was a 7-stage race or something like that. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But anyway, he completed a first ever Paris-Nice and a Taranto-Eurico double for Visma Lease Bike, celebrating dominating victory in Italy as Jonathan Milan won the final stage in the San Benedetto del Tonto seafront. So anyway, this is the reason why I'm mentioning this. So he wins. So once again, there's another Visma victory. They're just cleaning up again this year. It's just like crazy. But this is my favorite part. And we were running out of time, so quickly. Jonas Vingegaard climbed today at 11.9 kilometers, 6.2% climb in 26 minutes and 5 seconds at the mind-blowing speed of 27.37 kilometers per hour. It's one of the fastest ascents ever recorded on a 6% gradient. Normally, it's too hard to break away solo, and he's not even at 100% yet. By the way, can you say Marco Pantani? Right on the same edge there. I'm going to move on. I got other things I could talk about today, but I got no more time to do it. So we're going to move on to our events. Remember, the Frozen 4 training series is in effect right now. They've had a couple of races go by right now. It's great for training series if you want to learn how to race a bike, if you want to get involved in bike racing. It's in Farmington, Connecticut. It's on Bike Reg. The Philly Bike Show is March 16th to the 17th in the Pennsylvania Convention Center. Fun if you want to go see what a whole trade show is all about. I'm going to move on to the Natchaug Epic real quick from Domestique Events. I will be there in 2 weeks. Last week, the total registration was 670. This morning, when I checked, 732. There is an 850 rider cutoff. So let it be known. Sign up if you want to go ride a great dirt, a great gravel ride. It's a combination of gravel roads and paved roads. It's in Thompson, Connecticut. There are some of the events are totally sold out, but there's plenty of open time. And Wednesday, May 15th, rain or shine, 7 p.m. sharp rollout. It's the Ride of Silence, and that will be I'll talk about this week after week, so we won't even get into this today because I am completely out of time. So finishing points. Hey, the Americans are coming. The Americans are coming. We had a couple of really hot finishes there. We had a first and a third in the Paris-Nice. Pretty cool stuff. I think that's cool stuff anyway. We're just getting started. There's so much more bike racing going on. Is it's not Jumbo Visma anymore. Is Visma Lisa Bike going to smoke the entire season again this year? They're just they're so deep. They're so well spread out. There's just all sorts of stuff going on. Anyway, we're still in college basketball season here, so go Huskies. All sorts of cool stuff going on right now. But anyway, I'll talk more about that probably in the future. I know it's not bicycles, but we're in the basketball capital of the world, so that's what it is. I'll say it again, it won't be my last time. Get loud, get active. Our time has come. Stop complaining about traffic, dangerous roads, price of gas, the lack of places to safely ride, and join the revolution of change. Hey, take a day, park that car or truck, and get out and ride your bike. You might just surprise yourself. The views expressed in this program do not reflect the views of the staff, management, or licensee of this station. You have been listening to Bicycle Talk with my friendly co-host, the lovely Dr. Fran Storch, sitting over there in the background. If you're watching on Facebook Live, feel free to comment, and you can send me an email at bicycletalk1@gmail.com. You can also listen to past episodes of Bicycle Talk on whus.org, iTunes, Spotify, or my Bicycle Talk YouTube channel. This is Pedalin' Ron. Remember, keep that rubber side down, the wind at your back. Get out and ride your bike. It really could save your life. This is 91.7 FM, WHUS Stores, and WHUS.org. Thanks for listening. See you next week.